was a time when MTV wasn't just the home of music videos or over-the-top reality TV, it was a groundbreaking force in adult animation. From the early 90s to the mid-2000s, MTV aired a bold lineup of cartoons that were edgy, experimental, and completely unlike anything on television at the time. Shows like Beavis and Butt-Head, Daria, Aeon Flux, The Max, and Clone High didn't just entertain, they tapped into the psyche of a generation.
Get it.
These series push boundaries in humor, storytelling, and art style, turning MTV into an unexpected hub for countercultural creativity. But somewhere along the way, that magic disappeared, and fast. In this video, we're diving into the rise and fall of MTV Animation, how a channel built on music unexpectedly helped redefine cartoons for adults, and why that success couldn't last. Was it the explosion of reality programming?
This is the true story.
True story
of 7 strangers
picked to live in a house.
Like The Real World and Laguna Beach? Did rising production costs push out riskier animated content? Or did networks like Adult Swim and Comedy Central simply do it better and cheaper? We'll explore the key moments, creative minds, and business shifts that gave birth to MTV's cartoon era, and ultimately, what killed it.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
MTV officially launched at 12:01 a.m. on August 1st, 1981, with a bold message.
This is it. Welcome to MTV Music Television, the world's first 24-hour stereo video music channel. Now, just moments ago, all of the VJs and the crew here at MTV collectively hit our executive producer, Sue Steinberg, over the head with a bottle of champagne, and behold, a new concept is born. The best of TV combined with the best of radio.
Immediately followed by the Buggles' Video Killed the Radio Star. That single moment would signal a radical evolution in how Americans consume music. MTV was the first 24-hour cable channel dedicated exclusively to music videos.
They took the credit for your second symphony, rewritten by machine on new technology.
A format that transformed passive listening into a visual experience. At a time when cable TV itself was still a novelty, MTV dared to offer a non-stop stream of short-form music films, all curated with the energy and attitude of youth radio. This fusion of sound and image revolutionized both the music industry and youth culture in one bold move. The idea behind MTV was spearheaded by John Lack, a former radio executive, and Bob Pittman, who would later be dubbed the father of MTV. Working within Warner Amex Satellite Entertainment, they set out to create a television network that would function like a visual radio station. Record labels eager for exposure provided video content at no cost, which allowed the network to operate with relatively low production costs in its early years. Still, profitability was far from guaranteed. MTV famously lost over $30 million in its first 2 years, but aggressive marketing campaigns, especially the iconic "I Want My MTV" slogan, created pressure on cable companies to carry the network.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
Call your cable company and say, I want my MTV!
I want my MTV, MTV, MTV.
Leading to a slow but steady national rollout. Initially, MTV was only available in a few parts of New Jersey, but by the mid-1980s it had become a national cultural force. The rise of visually driven pop stars like Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Prince, combined with bands like Duran Duran and The Police, gave MTV an aesthetic and identity that extended far beyond the music. The network didn't just play videos, and it shaped how artists marketed themselves and how fans defined their own style. MTV also gave rise to the VJ, or video jockey, turning hosts like Martha Quinn and Mark Goodman into minor celebrities themselves. With its slick visuals, rock star attitude, and cutting-edge music selection, MTV defined an entire generation's relationship with pop culture.
Welcome back to the first annual MTV Video Music Awards show.
As the 1990s approached, the novelty began to wear thin. Music videos were losing their cultural edge, and ratings started to stagnate. Cable competition was intensifying, and MTV needed a new strategy to stay relevant. Under the leadership of executives like Doug Herzog, then head of programming, and later Judy McGrath, who would become president of MTV Networks, the channel began pivoting toward original content. Their goal was to diversify MTV's identity, not just as a music channel, but as a broader youth lifestyle brand. They believed that relying solely on record labels for content limited creative freedom and scheduling flexibility. This led to the rise of MTV Animation, which produced breakout hits like Beavis and Butt-Head, The Max, and Daria. These shows carried MTV's irreverent, edgy voice while giving the network complete ownership over its content. A key move in controlling costs and building lasting intellectual property. Recognizing the need to evolve, MTV's leadership, particularly Doug Herzog, who led programming, and Judy McGrath, who would later become MTV Network's president, began hiring a new wave of creative minds to reshape the network's identity. They brought in animators, independent creators, and alternative artists to develop programming that would speak directly to Gen X audiences who were growing disillusioned with traditional TV. Herzog and McGrath championed shows like Liquid Television, an experimental animation showcase that birthed cult hits like Aeon Flux, and later greenlit Beavis and Butt-Head from an unknown animator named Mike Judge.
Our next guest is the creator of the immensely popular Beavis and Butt-Head. For those of you who don't know anything about Beavis and Butt-Head, take a look at this videotape from the upcoming season, and it should give you an idea what it's all about.
Which became a runaway success. Their strategy was simple: control the content, take bigger risks, and speak to a more cynical, media-savvy generation. With this bold approach, MTV Animation was born, and for a time, it helped the network reclaim its status as a tastemaker for youth culture. In 1991, MTV launched Liquid Television, a late-night anthology show that became the testing ground for some of the weirdest and most original animation on television. It featured experimental shorts, surreal visuals, and dark humor that connected with Gen X audiences bored of mainstream network TV. Liquid Television introduced viewers to offbeat, adult-oriented cartoons long before Adult Swim or Comedy Central had established animation blocks. It wasn't just a show. It was a statement that MTV was willing to take creative risks.
Features underground animation, over-the-edge graphics, and stories from beyond the fringe.
Broken limb, why tonight?
Tune in to Liquid Television every Sunday night at 11 on MTV. Quality you can count on from Cox Cable.
The show birthed cult favorites like Aeon Flux, Stick Figure Theater, and the Art School Girls of Doom. The success of Liquid Television proved that MTV's audience was hungry for animation that was bold, subversive, and unfiltered. The network realized it didn't have to just react to pop culture, it could shape it. This realization set the stage for the creation of a full-fledged animation division. MTV Animation was established as an internal production arm, giving the network greater control over storytelling, branding, and scheduling. From there, they began to look for creators who could deliver offbeat ideas with a strong voice. And that's when they found Mike Judge. Mike Judge was a relatively unknown animator and former engineer when MTV came across his short film, Frog Baseball, which featured two idiotic teenage characters with exaggerated laughs. That short caught the attention of MTV execs Doug Herzog and Abby Turkulal, who saw potential in Judge's chaotic duo. They greenlit Beavis and Butt-Head in 1993, expanding on the concept into a full series. The show focused on two lazy, foul-mouthed high schoolers who watched music videos and commented on them, often inappropriately.
This part rules. Yeah. Rock.
It was crude, unapologetic, and exactly what MTV's growing adult audience didn't know they needed. Despite its polarizing nature, Beavis and Butt-Head became an overnight phenomenon. It regularly pulled in 3.3 million viewers a week, which was massive for a cable channel still trying to find its post-music identity. Critics complained about the show's content, blaming it for encouraging bad behavior and dumbing down a generation. But for MTV, it was a golden ticket. Low production costs, endless merchandising potential, and a loyal, vocal audience. Mike Judge's unique voice, deadpan delivery, and satirical take on American adolescence created a cultural storm and a marketing empire. By 1994, Beavis and Butt-Head had become MTV's flagship show, spawning comic books, toys, video games.
Finally, some action heroes who know the meaning of action.
Change it.
Introducing the Beavis and Butt-Head video game. Feel the thrill of the chase, discover new and powerful weapons, and control the destinies of America's leading morons.
Whoa. For like heroes, these guys are stupid.
Stupid.
2 morons, 3 different games. The Beavis and Butt-Head video game for Genesis, Game Gear, and Super NES. It rules.
And even a feature-length film in 1996. The series was more than just a ratings success. It redefined what adult animation could be on cable. At its peak, Beavis and Butt-Head helped drive a 25% spike in MTV's overall ratings, boosting the network's advertising revenue and reshaping its entire programming strategy. Mike Judge became a household name, and MTV realized it had tapped into a new era of animated rebellion. It had struck gold, and it wasn't about to stop there. Following Beavis and Butt-Head, MTV doubled down on animation. The success of Judge's creation led to a greenlight spree, resulting in shows like Daria, The Head, The Max, and Celebrity Deathmatch. Each show had its own tone and visual style, from Daria's dry sarcasm to The Max's psychological surrealism.
Scourge of the city.
A few women who can't take care of themselves get messed with, and you ride to the rescue. Who are you to assume responsibility for their lives?
I am the Max. Turn-ons, Pez, Cheers.
MTV's animation block became a staple of late-night television, and fans tuned in weekly to see which boundary would be pushed next. At a time when The Simpsons reigned supreme on network TV, MTV offered something stranger, darker, and more experimental. These shows weren't just entertainment, they were statements. MTV Animation gave creators an unprecedented level of creative freedom for the era, and the results were often unpredictable and unpolished in the best way. Even shows that didn't break into the mainstream found cult followings, especially among college students and late-night stoners.
Guess this is what they refer to as real life, huh?
Bet you I could get them both back to my crib with the quickness.
Does Big Fortuna look like he's having fun?
The animation block became a subcultural event, and MTV's identity shifted from just a music network to a hub for alternative animation. It gave voice to a generation that felt ignored by traditional entertainment. But behind the scenes, not everything was sustainable. While animation had brought new life to MTV, it was also more expensive and time-consuming to produce than reality shows. As the 2000s approached, executives began reevaluating where the real profits were coming from. And though the creative energy was still there, the business model was shifting, setting the stage for what would eventually spell the end of MTV's animation era. The revolution had begun, but it wasn't built to...
Excuse me.
Can you picture me making out with anyone, ever?
Nice, Steve.
Excellent job, Daria. You get an A.
All right.
Not you, you man. You get a D.
All right.
Close my locker.
You're standing on my neck. La 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 la.
Daria, 1997-2002. A smart, sarcastic spin-off of Beavis and Butt-Head, Daria followed the monotone musings of Daria Morgendorffer as she navigated suburban high school life with dry wit and brutal honesty.
Do you think I complain a lot?
What are you bitching about now?
Hey, nice scarf. Look, it converts into a noose.
Handy. Oh, Daria, don't be shy. Show me your boobs.
The show struck a deep chord with teens who felt out of place in a conformist world. Unlike the chaos of other MTV animations, Daria was grounded in social commentary and emotional realism. Its 5-season run and 2 TV movies made it one of MTV's longest-lasting and most beloved shows.
Romance. Who's your daddy? Betrayal. And of course, lifeguards.
You look so cute.
It's MTV's original movie, Daria. Is it fall yet? Guaranteed to add sunshine and happiness to your summer vacation.
La 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 la.
Even today, Daria is praised for its feminist lens and deadpan brilliance. Aeon Flux, 1991-1995. Originally part of Liquid Television, Aeon Flux was a stylish, sci-fi series created by Peter Chung.
Whose side are you on?
I take no side.
You're skating the edge.
I am the edge.
What you truly want, only I can give.
You can't give it, can't even buy it, and you just don't get it.
Known for its cryptic storytelling, violent action, and surreal aesthetics, the show followed an acrobatic, morally ambiguous assassin in a dystopian future. The animation was gritty and unconventional, pushing visual and narrative boundaries far beyond what most U.S. animation dared to do at the time. Episodes were often wordless, relying heavily on imagery and implication. Though it only ran for a few seasons, Aeon Flux remains one of MTV's most avant-garde productions. The Maxix, 1995, based on Sam Keith's comic book, The Max was a bold attempt to mix superhero themes with psychological trauma. The show told the story of a homeless man who shifts between reality and a violent alternate dimension known as the Outback. Visually stunning and emotionally heavy, it tackled topics like abuse, identity, and mental illness with surreal flair. Its single-season run earned cult status due to its mature storytelling and experimental animation. The Max remains one of the most unique and underrated shows MTV ever aired.
MTV's Oddities presents
Level with me, Doc.
The Head, 1994-1996. A purple alien living inside a college student's oversized head? That's The Head in a nutshell. Created by Eric Fogel, the show mixed absurd humor with sci-fi tropes. As protagonist, Jim fights off an intergalactic invasion while trying to live a normal life. The animation style was grotesque yet memorable, matching the bizarre tone of the story. While never a mainstream hit, it found a loyal fan base and stood out for its originality and blend of horror, comedy, and conspiracy. Downtown, 1999. Downtown was a slice-of-life animated dramedy centered around a group of young adults in New York City, struggling with love, jobs, and identity.
Something. At least I won't be kept up by that freaking club music.
You mean like this? Like this kind of music? Get down, baby, let me hump your leg.
Stop. Please, my soul hurts.
Created by Chris Prynoski, the show blended sketchbook animation with urban realism, delivering intimate character moments and sharp dialogue. It was deeply grounded in subcultures like punk, hip-hop, and anime fandoms, making it feel hyper-authentic.
What are you doing now? Watch and learn, son. Someday a rain will come and wash away all the scum. Jen! Ha! That's what you get. Now let's just sit back and watch everyone run out.
Downtown only lasted one season, but is still remembered fondly by fans for its relatable tone and raw energy. It's often cited as one of the most emotionally honest shows MTV ever produced. Undergrads, 2001. This Canadian import followed four friends as they navigated freshman year in college, capturing the awkward mix of freedom and anxiety that defines young adulthood. Its stylized, clean animation and goofy but genuine tone made it a sleeper hit among late-night viewers. Despite only getting one season, Undergrads became a cult classic thanks to reruns and DVD sales. The show's theme song, Come On, by Biff Naked, also became iconic in its own right. Fans have long campaigned for a revival, and a crowd-funded movie was announced years later.
Way back in the 1980s, secret government employees dug up famous guys and ladies and made up using genetic copy.
Clone High, 2002-2003, created by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Clone High was a parody of high school teen dramas, where historical figures like Abe Lincoln, Joan of Arc, and JFK are cloned and enrolled in a government experiment. Its absurd humor, fast pacing, and surprisingly heartfelt character arcs made it a critical favorite. Unfortunately, controversy over its portrayal of Gandhi sparked backlash in India, leading MTV to pull the show after one season. Still, Clone High developed a devoted cult following and was revived by HBO Max 2 decades later. It remains a symbol of the creative risks MTV once championed. 3 South, 2002. Often forgotten, 3 South was a chaotic college comedy focused on two dim-witted friends wreaking havoc at a fictional university. It was crude, juvenile, and completely unapologetic, almost a spiritual cousin to Beavis and Butt-Head. The show struggled to find its audience and only aired 10 episodes before being canceled. But it stood as one of the last purely comedic cartoons produced by MTV before the shift in tone and focus. For fans of dumb humor, with a purposefully anarchic tone, 3 South still holds niche appeal. The shift begins, late 1990s, early 2000s. Despite the creative boom, the late 1990s brought internal questions at MTV about costs versus returns. Animation, while culturally rich, was expensive to produce and slow to turn profits. Meanwhile, reality-based programming like The Real World and Road Rules delivered quick, cheap ratings gold. Executives like Brian Graydon and Tom Freston began favoring unscripted shows with mass appeal and lower overhead.
So you want to be a player, but your wheels ain't flying. You gotta hit us up to get a pimped out ride.
You've got to pimp my ride.
With hits like Jackass, Pimp My Ride, and TRL dominating the airwaves, animation slowly faded out, marking the beginning of the end for MTV's most creatively ambitious chapter. So, what exactly caused the decline of MTV Animation? After such a groundbreaking run of daring and original content, the collapse seemed sudden. But in reality, it was a slow shift. One driven by ratings, budgets, and a changing definition of what MTV even was.
TRL. Yeah, well, you know, it's about Austin Daily. Time sweet. Hi, kids.
Hey, I'm Christina Aguilera.
Over there.
I think they're expecting that little something extra when they come to a show.
Hey, this is Jennifer
The
Lopez.
very network that once prided itself on artistic risk and cultural edge now found itself leaning into safe, profitable formulas. Cartoons were cool, but they just weren't cheap, fast, or mainstream enough. The biggest reason for the shift was simple economics. Producing animated shows like Daria required a full team of writers, animators, and voice actors, along with long lead times. Whereas unscripted shows like The Real World could be filmed fast, cheap, and with minimal editing. At its peak, Daria averaged around 1.5 to 2 million viewers per episode, a strong showing for late-night animation. But The Real World regularly pulled 3 to 4 million viewers, often airing during prime time and costing far less to produce. From a business standpoint, MTV began favoring quantity over creativity, and reality TV gave them just that. Then there were the ratings. While Beavis and Butt-Head was a breakout, many other MTV animated shows had niche audiences. Shows like The Head, Undergrads, and even Clone High had critical praise, but didn't hit mass-market numbers. When you're competing with cheap reality juggernauts pulling in millions of viewers weekly, being cult classic just wasn't enough. MTV wanted shows that everyone was watching, not just late-night animation fans. Meanwhile, the animation landscape outside MTV was evolving rapidly. Comedy Central's South Park was pushing boundaries with sharp, headline-driven humor and getting massive ratings. Adult Swim emerged on Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, revolutionizing late-night adult animation with shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, C-Lab 2021, and Robot Chicken. These networks specialized in weird, offbeat animation, picking up the torch MTV had arguably lit, but they had better infrastructure, a dedicated adult audience, and room to experiment long-term. As these competitors thrived, MTV began experiencing a full-blown identity crisis. By the mid-2000s, the M in MTV barely stood for music anymore. Executives pivoted toward becoming a lifestyle brand for millennials, driven by fashion, celebrity culture, and aspirational drama. My Super Sweet 16, Punk to the Hills, and Robin Big became flagship shows. These programs were fast, flashy, and tailor-made for internet buzz. Cartoons just didn't fit this new blueprint. One of the final nails in the coffin was the cancellation of Clone High. Created by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the show was critically adored for its wit, irreverence, and emotional nuance. But despite the love from fans and strong online buzz, Clone High averaged under 900,000 viewers per episode. Meanwhile, MTV's reality lineup, shows like The Osbournes and The Real World Las Vegas, were pulling 3 to 6 million viewers each week. Controversy over Clone High's portrayal of Gandhi sparked international backlash. But in truth, the ratings gap had already sealed its fate. MTV saw a future in unscripted TV, not clever cartoons. By the mid-2000s, MTV's animation slate had essentially vanished. Attempts to revive the format came and went, none more high-profile than the 2011 reboot of Beavis and Butt-Head. The show returned with updated pop culture commentary, this time skewering Jersey Shore and YouTube videos instead of music videos. Critics praised it, and longtime fans tuned in with nostalgia. But it failed to capture a new generation, and the show was quietly canceled after one season. What's tragic is that MTV had once been the network pushing the limits of what adult animation could look like. While mainstream networks were playing it safe with sitcoms, MTV was telling stories about identity, trauma, counterculture, and rebellion with cartoons. But as audience tastes shifted and digital platforms took over, MTV chose mass appeal over creative risk. It's a pattern that repeated across the media industry, but MTV's transition was especially sharp and irreversible. The era of experimentation was officially over. The irony? Many of the very creators who got their start at MTV went on to have long, successful careers elsewhere. Mike Judge launched King of the Hill, Silicon Valley, and eventually Beavis and Butt-Head and King of the Hill reboots. Phil Lord and Chris Miller directed the Lego Movie, Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, and 21 Jump Street. MTV had been a launchpad for some of animation's most influential voices, but never stuck around to support their evolution. In chasing short-term trends, the network missed out on long-term legacy. And so, MTV Animation faded, not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet exit behind a wave of unscripted hits. What had once been a beacon of artistic innovation was now a different kind of powerhouse, driven by celebrity drama, viral moments, and relatability over rebellion. For a time, cartoons gave MTV a second life. But in the end, the network walked away from its animated revolution, trading experimentation for ratings gold. And with that, one of the boldest chapters in television history came to a close. So, what killed MTV Animation? It wasn't just one decision or one show. It was a slow unraveling of priorities. As the 2000s arrived, the network began chasing quick wins, cheaper reality shows, trend-chasing formats, and viral moments over storytelling. Ratings for animated series like Clone High or The Head simply couldn't compete with Laguna Beach or The Real World. Add in the rising costs of animation and the growing dominance of Adult Swim and Comedy Central, and MTV decided it was time to pivot. But in doing so, it abandoned a space where it had once thrived creatively. Animation became expendable in the face of fast fame and ad revenue. Still, the legacy of MTV's animation run can't be ignored. That era gave birth to bold, bizarre, and brilliant storytelling that spoke directly to youth culture, uncensored, unfiltered, and completely unique. It was a space where weirdness thrived and where artists weren't afraid to push the boundaries of art and satire. From the surrealism of Aeon Flux, to the biting sarcasm of Daria, to the idiotic genius of Beavis and Butt-Head, these shows defined a generation of animation. Even Clone High, canceled in its prime, found new life decades later with a modern reboot. That spark of originality, the voice MTV once amplified, never fully disappeared. It just found new homes. MTV Animation wasn't just a block of programming. It was a movement powered by creativity, risk-taking, and the vision of hardworking artists, animators, and writers. For nearly 16 years, they built a mini-empire of edgy cartoons that challenged what animation could be. It was subversive, raw, experimental, and unforgettable. But eventually, those bold brushstrokes were erased in favor of spray tans and scripted drama. The rise of shows like Jersey Shore, Pimp My Ride, and Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory marked the start of a new MTV, one less about art and more about attention. And while that new model made money, it cost MTV something greater: its creative soul. Thanks for watching. And in the comments, tell me which MTV cartoon you think deserved a longer life.
People judge you by your expression.
Yes, and I believe there is something intrinsically wrong with that system. I have dedicated myself to changing it.